Okay, good morning. This is Richard Shu, host of Shu Untied. This morning, I'm very pleased and honored to have with me as my guest Simon Sinek, who's an inspirational speaker, motivator, has one of the most popular TED Talks, and is the author of the book Start With Why. Simon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, Simon, I've seen your incredible TED Talk that you did about how great leaders inspire people. I guess I'd like to ask you, how did you kind of come about with that idea, and what was the genesis of a lot of the themes that were in that talk?
It started with pain, to be honest. I never set out to do anything that I'm doing now, write books or give talks. I was a small business owner, and I ran out of passion for what I was doing. And people gave me stupid advice like, do what you love. It's like, well, I'm doing the same thing and I don't love it anymore. And it was kind of a dark place. Because I sort of felt very embarrassed by that, because I had a decent life and I made a decent living and had great clients and we did great work. And so I didn't admit to anyone that I wasn't happy. And so almost all my energy went into pretending that I was more successful and more in control and happier than I actually felt. And it wasn't until a close friend came to me worried about me did it give me the courage to sort of face the problem and go on and find a solution. And that solution was this natural discovery, this naturally occurring pattern that I discovered of these three things that exist in every organization, even our own careers. We all know what we do. Some of us know how we do it, but you also have to know why. And I didn't know that. And that started the whole thing. It was really a personal journey.
Now, so it sounds like the idea almost just came to you, or were you reading some books, or were you influenced by anybody for that idea?
These things are evolutions. It's people ask me what was the light bulb moment. There was no such thing. There were things that I was tinkering with to try and explain why some marketing worked and some marketing didn't. And I had it called the golden circle even back then. And then I met somebody at an event who started telling me about the biology of human brain. Her dad happened to be a neuroscientist, and she told me about the limbic brain and the neocortex. And I started just putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And that's when I was able to sort of see that what I had was much deeper than simply understanding marketing, was understanding how the brain worked.
Now, when you first came up with the idea, did you think, wow, this is a great idea? Or you thought, gee, this is probably going nowhere? Like, what was the initial response how did you go about kind of sharing this idea and getting it out there?
Oh, I knew it was a good idea because it worked. It restored my passion. I mean, that was pretty amazing. And I did what anyone would do when you discover something beautiful. I shared it with the people I loved. You go see a good movie or read a good book, you tell your friends to, go see it or buy it, Mm-hmm. And so I told my friends started making crazy life changes. My friends would invite me to their homes to share with their friends. I'd literally stand in someone's living room and talk about this thing called the why and help people find their why for $100 on the side. It was always very organic.
So do you think the reason it resonates, I guess it resonates because it's really true. I mean, I guess that's why it probably resonates with people.
Yeah, I mean, and that's my rule about good businesses even today, which is I like businesses where the founder or founders, set out to solve a very real problem or challenge that they or somebody close to them personally suffered. When you read about a market opportunity in a magazine, or you see another company, make money doing something, and you realize you can do the same thing, those tend to be, in my mind, weaker businesses. Organic businesses where the idea was organic are the most beautiful and elegant, and that's where the passion comes from. Nobody's passionate for something they read about. Nobody's passionate for a market opportunity.
Right.
We're passionate for the things that actually affected our lives.
So since since obviously that talk for Golden Circle, that was a while ago, tell me a little bit about kind of how how you sort of developed your, stuff since then? Like, tell me a little bit about sort of how it's grown from there.
Well, all of my work is semi-autobiographical. So I never thought I'd write another book. I wrote Start With Why, and that was it. I thought I was going to be, people called me the why guy. I thought I was going to be the why guy for the rest of my life, And I used to joke that I was a one-trick pony, but it was a good trick,
Mm-hmm.
And, as my career progressed, I started struggling with other things like trust and cooperation. I was spending a lot of time with folks in the military, and I saw how much they cared and trusted each other. And then I'm spending time in private sector, and people don't even like to give up credit for things, let alone their lives,
Mm-hmm.
And so I started asking questions, and I was struggling myself, like, who to trust. And so I wanted to understand where those folks that I was spending time with in uniform, where they came from. And I just happened to be at dinner with my publisher. It was just a social dinner. And he's like, what are you working on these days? And I just told him what I was learning about. trying to understand it for myself. I'm sort of innately curious and sort of set out to understand things because I'm like a little kid that way. And I just was over dinner telling him about it, and he's like, "I'll publish that if you want." And I went, "Okay," and that became Leaders Eat Last.
Oh, interesting. So how many books do you have now?
3 in the market, and a couple more that I'm working on.
Right. So how do you split your time now between, say, speaking, writing, and I assume you also consult with companies and stuff? How do you kind of split that time?
Chaotically. I wish it were organized. It's not that simple. It's a chaotic system.
Tell me a little bit about maybe some of your background that kind of, I mean, what from your background do you think kind of, was good preparation for kind of the career you have now? You said you weren't thinking about ever being a speaker and a writer, but I
Yeah.
assume some of the things you've done in the past sort of, prepared you for that.
Well, like I said, I'm like a little kid. I'm insatiably curious about a lot of things, and I actually go try and find out answers. I like answers to things. And like a little kid, like just telling me that it works is not enough. I want to know why it worked. I'm fascinated by human beings. I always have been. And the way I think everybody can say this, the way my parents raised us, had an impact on us. And my parents exposed us to a lot of stuff. My mother's an artist, and we sort of saw a lot of stuff and did a lot of stuff. We traveled a lot. We went on. My mom would always take us on adventures and museums and things. And I think that sort of rewarded the curiosity. And both my parents are all about treating people equally and treating everybody well. And you see that doesn't happen in the world, especially in the business world. So, you wonder how you reconcile all these competing ideas in my head.
Now, your ideas seem like they're most applicable to, entrepreneurs, but does your message also resonate with people who are, not necessarily entrepreneurs, just sort of in their personal lives? Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had the opportunity to meet Baz Luhrmann once, the director of Moulin Rouge and Romeo and Juliet and all those movies. I sat next to him at a luncheon once, and I loved the way he talked about his work. He said, when he's working on a project, he treats it like one of his children, where he invests everything he's got to make this as good as it can be and prepare it for the world, And then when it's finished, he releases it to the world, and off it goes and lives its own life, and he moves on to the next project. And he says, whenever people come up to him on the street and say, "Oh my God, I love Moulin Rouge," he'll say, "Oh, how is he? I haven't seen him in years. Say hi for me." It's like they take a life of their own. And my work is like that. Like I could anticipate at least some of where the work would resonate, as you said, like in the entrepreneurial world. But I had no idea that it would resonate as deeply as it does with big business, with government, with military, with in church organizations. In the arts. I had no clue that it would make its way into all those places, and it has. And that to me is the most exciting thing. That I'm so proud of it, like a kid. Like I'm so proud what my kid's gone off to do all by itself.
So you mentioned, so you don't have like a plan for like what are the topics like going forward into the future? You mentioned you've been working on trust. Like what are some of the other areas that you're hoping to explore maybe, or have you thought about that you want to learn more about that, complements what you've done in the past?
I mean, all my work complements each other, and all the work builds upon the previous work. You could read every book out of order, but there is a journey if you read them in order. Again, they're all written independently, but it's my journey. I'm not an academic, so I don't just sit and be like, "I wonder how this works." I'm like,
right.
"Oh, I'm struggling with this. How the hell am I going to overcome that?" And so the work that I'm doing now, the book that I'm writing, is like I'm an idealist, but I function in reality. That's a problem, And there are lots of idealists, entrepreneurs and otherwise, who have grand visions that, let's be honest, they're naive. Well, I'm naive. So what do you do when you have ideals and vision, but the world is not the same? The world does not care about your vision. The world is trying to make a buck. The world is much short-term focused. So how does somebody with vision and an idealism function in the real world? I'm fascinated by that because that's something I struggle with. So that's what I'm writing about now. And the learning has been amazing. I'm learning so much. It's fantastic.
Who are some authors and other speakers that maybe influence some of your thinking or have heavily influenced your thinking?
Seth Godin gives me a hard time, and I'm really grateful to him. He really pushes me very hard. When I get to see him, I'll come up with some grandiose idea, and he'll always pick it to pieces, and I'm so grateful for that. So Seth's been really fantastic, and I have other friends who I turn to for similar reasons. Bob Chapman's become a good friend. I wrote about him in Leaders Eat Last, and same with Charlie Kim. They're both people that I met from writing that I've become friends with, and they challenge me. And I have my friend George Flynn, Lieutenant General George Flynn, also Johnny Bravo. The people that I write about, some of them I've become friends with, and they push me, and I really appreciate that.
Now, it sounds like you absolutely love what you do, but is there anything you could imagine or hope that you still want to do in your career?
I'm an author technically because I've written books, and if I don't have any more ideas worth writing, then I won't write any more books. Like I don't have a hankering to write books. I hate writing books, but if I have an idea that I think has value and worth sharing, because my friends are interested in that idea, then I'll share it because I think that's a good thing to do. I'm a sharer. Scale really matters to me. Spreading these ideas and sharing a vision of the world that doesn't yet exist now is really important to me. I have a vision of the world that does not yet exist. I imagine a world in which the vast majority of people wake up every single morning inspired to go to work, feel safe when they're there, and return home fulfilled at the end of the day. That's the world I want to live in. That is not the world we live in now. And so it's really important to me, if I ever want to see that vision come to life, to preach and to find a way to get that message out to millions more people. So I'm always looking for ways to spread that message in new and different ways. So I'm not married to speaking or writing or any of these things. I'm totally agnostic. And so when I think about my future, I'm always thinking about how to not only get these messages out, but then for those to whom it resonates or with whom it resonates, how do I help them actually do the stuff that I talk about?
Well, Simon, this has been a fascinating conversation. I really appreciate the time. When you do get around to writing that next book or you come up with some new additional ideas, I'd love to have you come back and tell me about them.
That's really nice of you. Thanks very much, Richard. I appreciate you giving me a platform to help me share my ideas.
Absolutely. This is Richard Hsu and Simon Sinek. Thanks.